Hey everyone, welcome. Restore Justice, the podcast. We're in season 3, working our way through some of the learnings from the book Gospel Justice that Bruce wrote. Bruce is on with us, walking us through it. We're bringing some guests on along the way. Today, Bruce, it's just you and me unpacking that same story, the story of the Good Samaritan. At least that's the way it's called. And last time we looked at the perspective of the injured man. Today, you're going to take us through one of the other characters or multiple characters, and that's the robbers. Right? So set this up for us and let's dive right in to our learning for the day.
Yeah, Joe. So in the book, I started the chapter quoting from Psalms because I think it shows, like the robbers, for example, that we don't actually see them in the story, but the effect of their presence is obvious in the way the injured man is left. And that's robbers today operate the same way. They hide behind things they don't want you to see. And I like the way that the Bible says it. So I'll just read that.
Yeah.
Who will protect me from the wicked? Who will stand up for me against evildoers? They crush your people, Lord, hurting those you claim as your own. They kill widows and foreigners and murder orphans. The Lord isn't looking, they say, and besides, the God of Israel doesn't care.
Mm.
And that, Joe, for me can be the tragedy when life beats you down, when different robbers and different kinds of robbers that rob us of joy, that rob us of peace, that rob us of dignity, rob us of, it can be finances, it can be family, it can be all kinds of things. There are lots and lots of robbers, but they can just leave us crushed, and we can agree that, wow, God doesn't see injustice. Why does God allow bad things to happen? Right? A big question people have. And then we can just feel like God doesn't care. Oh, the God of Israel doesn't care. No God cares about me, or these things wouldn't be happening to me.
Man, that's a great insight, Bruce, because now that I'm thinking about that, when people are in these situations, we know you're absolutely right. They're thinking these thoughts. And if the right people aren't around them to answer that question or help them past it, that's a spiral downward, right? But if you surround them with the right people at the right time, the care of the lawyer, the promise of God's love, people who can care for them, support them, it can be a transformational moment in their life. But it literally comes down to that moment. And like we talked about last time we were on together with Steve, we're called to act. And those of us that don't act, well, there's a message in the story of the Good Samaritan for them. But for those who do act, there's great upside. So staying with this theme of these robbers, right? Mm-hmm. I like that you point out how secretive they are. You don't really get to typically see them. You know, the guys who are involved in trafficking humans, they're not walking around the street saying, I traffic humans.
Exactly.
They're hiding behind layers and layers and layers of, their people. Financial fraudsters.
And in fact, honestly, even in that area, think about it. Then we'll move on to your fraudsters. But I just recently we had a conviction in suburbs of Chicago, right? Nice neighborhood, a ring of traffickers, sex traffickers, because they think they can do that in plain sight, that nobody's going to believe that would happen in my neighborhood. Nobody's going to believe that happens to somebody I know. But it does, and that's what the robbers are counting on that in that area. They're counting on it in other areas too.
Yeah. So if I'm trained as a lawyer, or if I'm somebody who goes to a local church and has this heart for justice, I have an opportunity to counter what these robbers are doing, because the robbers are doing their thing. They will always do their thing, right? On this side of eternity, they're always going to be there. So that's a reality. It's actually getting worse. So then the question is, what are you and I called to do, given the reality of all these different types and genres of robbers? How can we have our impact in different ways, right? I don't volunteer to Gospel Justice Center, but I can do my best to do my part in the gospel justice story moving forward. Anything else on this theme of, or this perspective of the Jericho Road story from the robber perspective that you want to make sure we don't miss?
Right. Kind of the flip side of it. So you're right. Robbers, by their nature, they steal, they take. It's all about them and what they can grab, and they don't care. They literally, no dignity. This poor man's left naked, beaten to death. That's what happens to people today too. They just feel taken advantage of. Can be in lots of different, can be in a relationship, can be
Sure.
in a workplace, can be in housing, in lots of different areas where people can feel, and they are in fact preyed upon. And these robbers, that's what they take. People of God are called to give, the opposite. And so for me, if you want to flip that robber on a head, don't miss the opportunity like the priest and the Levite. But like you said, maybe you can't always volunteer. So what can you do? Maybe you aren't the lawyer, and maybe you don't
Right.
even have that time to volunteer on a Saturday. But everybody can become aware of these needs and pray for them. And everybody, I believe, could participate by providing some support. The Samaritan did that with
Yes.
different wages, and we could. For that matter, Joe, as you know, it only takes $5,000 to open up a gospel justice center. You talk about driving out the robbers. For
Yeah.
just
In
a
your
few
neighborhood.
dollars, now you're giving instead of taking. You're investing that, and it opens up and always sustainable because clients pay a $30 copay. And so once it's open, it can run until the Lord returns. That's a great way to kind of flip the robbers on their head and say,
Yeah.
instead of taking advantage of people, I'm going to give to see this set up in a community that's going to continue to give to help those neighbors on Jericho's road.
And I'm glad you gave us the reminder that these robbers don't just exist on the street corner of the ghetto, so to speak, right? They are in your
Right.
neighborhoods. That's, I think, our challenge to people watching and listening is find your way to act, because the robber factor is just growing by the minute. Yeah, one of the stories you were telling me, Bruce, was this guy named John. I think, do you remember who I was talking about, John? Like,
Yeah.
here as an example of somebody on the side of the road and robbed, and there's Johns everywhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the power, again, kind of, we talked about this a little bit with the injured man with Steve last time, and I encourage listeners to go back, listen to that. But it is any of us. That was Jesus' point, that any of us could be that robber on the Jericho road. So John is one of those any of us. Literally,
Hmm.
there but for the grace of God go I. Same thing with fraudsters. I mean, really, all these different predators, we could fall prey. It doesn't just happen to somebody else. And so that's like John. Hey, he's going through life perfectly fine. Great job. But one morning he wakes up, he had no idea later that day he would have a stroke. That
Oof.
could happen to any of us. Suddenly, he can't do the job of heavy lifting that he used to. He does recover with physical therapy and different things, but he can't do the same job. His
Okay.
employer gets rid of him. There are other jobs, and he is actually doing that job well, but they just don't want him around. They think he should apply for disability. John wants to work. He can work. He just can't do really, really heavy lifting from the
Right.
stroke. But
But the
they don't
employer
want
just
him
doesn't want to
around.
deal with it,
Yeah,
right?
they let him go, and then they contest unemployment. The poor guy now doesn't have enough. He's looking for work, but he can't find a job while he's trying to deal with unemployment, and he's in an apartment, and they don't wait around. I mean, he misses a payment, and he's served with evictions. Before you know it, he's literally homeless. So he's staying in a homeless shelter when he comes to the Gospel Justice Center at a church because of a cascade of consequences from a stroke that he didn't know was going to happen, that the trajectory of his life would instantly change. But when he comes and he meets this wonderful team, now instead of being that injured man, and he comes in and people stop and they're serving him, and we coach him through how to get unemployment, what he needs to say, not say, cutting through the paperwork that he'd received that's in legal mumbo jumbo, but helping him understand really what it is, and literally just role playing so that
Mm.
he speaks it out and he takes great notes because he wants to work. And why
Yeah.
rob him of the dignity of work? He wants to work, he can within certain limited guidelines, but there are jobs out there and he wants to go look for it. So he should get unemployment in the meantime.
Right.
And by being coached, he's able to do that. But also by praying with John and just reminding him that God is present. John just jumped up and gave me the biggest bear hug, praising God, because he called us just angels of mercy in his life at a time when everything was dark, when everybody seemed against, these robbers just seemed to be ganging up on him. Here was a loving team of people that were really seeking to restore him, to believe him, to listen to him, and remind him above all that God loved him and had a plan for his life. And John believed that, and it restored his faith, and he was just so excited. So I love the reminder of John that any of us could be on Jericho's road, and what a great opportunity for any of us to serve our neighbor that finds themselves there.
Yeah. And what a practical example of kind of those surprise situations that could take your life and turn it around like that. And you just don't know. And there's people like that all over your town, all over your neighborhood, walking by your church, probably not walking into your church, but walking by your church.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
maybe a free legal aid or, Gospel Justice Center sign would cause them to go, maybe next Saturday we should pop in there and find out how they can help us. And that could be that transformational moment in their life. And how can
Amen.
we all be part of it? Yeah. All right. Any closing thoughts from you, Bruce, as we close out this episode, as we looked at this perspective of the robbers and the reality of them, and how we are called to counter that in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I think it's just important to remember that gentleman who was walking that's in the story didn't expect to be robbed within an inch of his life either, right? There was that unexpected. And Jesus' parable is very clear to show that the priest and the Levite saw the man and they had an unexpected opportunity instead of an unexpected tragedy, and they missed it. And I don't want us, wherever God has you today, if you're listening to this, and if he's pricking your heart, because he does want us to stop. He does want us to go and do likewise. But don't miss the unexpected opportunity, even as I pray that you do not experience the unexpected tragedy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Bruce. We'll see you next time. I think next time we'll have a guest on with us to
We will.
unpack another character or set of characters in this dynamic story that there's so much to learn from. So thanks for being part of this, and we'll see you next time. See you all next time.